The transport shuttle docked with a soft metallic shudder, and Rae Everhart exhaled slowly. Her pulse was calm, steady, trained. Still, she could feel her nerves gathering like static beneath her skin. This wasn't just another school. Astraeus Academy was the most advanced learning institution in the galactic Concord, home to the brightest of 100 species, and she was the first human ever accepted. The airlock doors hissed open. Pale blue lighting washed over gleaming corridors that curved in perfect arcs. Transparent sections of the walls revealed the endless storm bands of the gas giant below, violet and sapphire clouds swirling like a hypnotic whirlpool. A mechanical voice chimed overhead, calm and precise. "Welcome, new arrivals. Please follow the illuminated guidance path to Orientation Hall A." Rae stepped out. Her boots felt heavy. The station maintained a gentle artificial gravity, only half of Earth's. To the students around her, the environment was perfectly normal. To Rae, it felt like walking through air. She kept her posture straight, shoulders squared. Her uniform, a simplified black travel set issued to new students, felt too clean, too plain. She pushed her dark hair behind her ear and walked. Whispers followed. She didn't need enhanced hearing to pick them out. "Is that the Deathworlder?" "Looks small for something so dangerous." Rae kept walking. People always talked. Back home, you learned early that predators didn't announce themselves. They simply acted. A tall, iridescent-skinned student with gossamer wings stared openly as she passed. His pupils were vertical slits, shimmering silver. "You're the human," he said without preamble. Rae stopped. "Last I checked," he blinked twice. "Why would your species send one of your juveniles to a place of higher learning? Isn't that risky?" Rae smiled, tight and polite. "We're used to risk." The winged student recoiled slightly, and Rae continued toward the hall. Orientation Hall. A resembled a cathedral built entirely from glass and polished stone. Tiered seating encircled a floating lectern where holographic star charts rotated in slow spirals. Students filed in, some furred, some scaled, some with plated exoskeletons that clacked against their chairs. Rae felt every eye on her. She sat alone near the front. When the lights dimmed, a hologram activated, projecting the Academy crest, a star cradled by a ring of orbit lines. Then Headmaster Solivar stepped forward, a tall being with smooth obsidian skin and 4 luminous eyes, dressed in formal robes that rippled like liquid metal. "Welcome," Solivar said, voice resonant and warm. "You are here because your potential demands refinement. You will challenge yourselves beyond comfort." Rae straightened. Comfort was not part of her vocabulary. "In our midst," Solivar continued, "is the first student from Earth, Rae Everhart." The whispering resumed. Louder. Solivar held up a hand. Silence. "Humanity evolved under gravity more than double that of most inhabited worlds. Their biology has adapted to extremes we consider hostile." A ripple of unease traveled through the room. Rae swallowed. Great. Nothing like being described as a disaster that learned to walk. Then Solivar's next word surprised her. "Treat her as you would any peer. Fear grows only where ignorance is fed." That earned a few scoffs. After orientation, Rae followed her digital map to her first class, Advanced Gravitic Theory. The classroom resembled a miniature observation dome, with transparent panels offering a panoramic view of the nebula beyond. At the center of the room hovered a single desk, teacher's station, equipped with adjustable hollow interfaces. Rae claimed a seat near the front again. Students filed in, forming small clusters, none near her. A soft voice sounded from behind. "Is this seat taken?" Rae turned. A thin, pale blue alien stood there, delicate antennae curling at the ends. Their eyes were kind. "No," Rae replied. "Go ahead." The alien sat carefully. "My name is Saris." Then quieter. "I think it's brave that you came." "It's just school," Rae said. "For you, perhaps." Saris offered a gentle smile. "For others, your presence challenges assumptions they've never questioned." Before Rae could respond, the room grew quiet. A student entered, posture tall and self-assured. His skin was silver white, patterned with faint geometric markings. His uniform bore the crest of a noble house. Ceres whispered, "That's Xeric Talvor." Xeric stopped when he reached Rae's desk. His gaze traveled from her boots to her face, not with curiosity, but with judgment. A human. His tone was sharp. "Interesting." Rae kept her expression neutral. "Is that a problem?" "It's surprising your species finally learned to leave your gravity well. I assumed you were still battling predators for territory." Rae rested her elbows on the desk. "Well, we won," a few students snickered. Xeric didn't. Professor Zephyra arrived, an elegant figure with translucent tendrils flowing like fabric. Without preamble, she activated the holo-display. "Today," she said, "we analyze vector prediction in real-time gravitic fluctuations." Spheres of light appeared. "Drifting like miniature suns, who will solve the first sequence?" Zephyra asked. No one moved. Rae stood. The professor nodded permission. She stepped to the console. Holospheres shimmered before her, mapping gravitational pull across 8 variables. Rae analyzed them quickly. Earth taught her to read patterns, even when chaos blurred the lines. She entered her solution. The spheres aligned perfectly. The professor's tendrils brightened. "Correct." "Impressive response time." Xeric's chair creaked as he stood. "Beginner's luck," he said, strolling toward her. "Let's see how she handles complexity." He gestured, and a new simulation materialized, 10 times more complex. Rae felt a flicker of challenge spark in her chest. She worked. Hand steady. Mind fully engaged. The pattern clicked into place. Logical, precise, accepted. A quiet murmur spread across the classroom. Zephyra studied Rae thoughtfully. "You recognize the hidden countervector." "Few students see it so quickly," Xeric's voice cut the air. "This is a mistake." He stepped beside Rae, eyes narrow. "You don't belong here." Rae faced him directly. "Say that again when you beat me." A flicker of irritation crossed his features. He returned to his seat, but Rae saw it, the smallest crack in his confidence. Ceres leaned closer. "You just challenged a noble heir." "I didn't challenge him," Rae murmured. "He challenged me." Class ended. Students drifted out, but Xeric remained. He blocked her path. "You embarrassed me." Rae tilted her head. "You did that yourself?" His eyes hardened. "There's a simulation exam tomorrow. I hope you enjoy short-lived victories." He left with sharp, controlled movements. Ceres hovered behind her. "Be careful." "Nobles don't like losing." Rae gathered her bag. "Then he'd better get used to it." Ceres studied her. "Why are you really here, Rae?" She considered lying, to sound noble, strategic, diplomatic. Instead, she told the truth. "I'm here because humans have spent their entire existence believing we were alone. Now we're not. I want to make sure we deserve our place among the stars." Ceres offered a small bow. "Then may the stars make room for you." Rae walked toward the exit, her footsteps steady. The gas giant rotated beyond the transparent walls. Storms swirling in endless motion. She whispered to herself, "Not a promise, just fact. I'm going to prove I belong here." Because Rae Everhart hadn't crossed light years to be underestimated. She came to win. The simulation chamber wasn't impressive at first glance, just a circular room surrounded by transparent walls. But Rae knew what hid beneath the simplicity. A gravitic field generator capable of altering mass, directional pull, and rotational force, the kind of tech people normally needed clearance levels to even look at. Rae stood at her assigned console while Professor Zephyra moved around the room, verifying calibrations. The lighting was soft, almost too calm for what they were about to attempt. A group of students huddled together whispering. Rae ignored them and focused on the interface. Xeric lingered on the opposite side of the chamber, arms crossed, watching her with a slow, self-satisfied smile. "He thinks today ends me." Professor Zephyra's voice carried through the room. "Each of you will run a gravity modulation trial. Maintain stabilization, while the system alters mass distribution. Losing control will result in disqualification." Rae cracked her fingers once. Saris approached her, antennae twitching nervously. If you feel unsafe, stop. Pride is not worth injury. Rae offered a brief smile. I'm here to learn, not to crash. But deep inside, she wanted more. She wanted to prove she wasn't an anomaly or a mistake. She wanted to earn her place. The lights shifted to blue. The exam had begun. Rae approached the console. A circular gravitic model hovered in the air, forming into a glowing sphere representing a scaled system. The interface displayed vector streams and mass indicators. Zephyr nodded. Ready when you are, Rae Everhart. Rae placed her fingertips on the haptic pads. Starting sequence. The gravity simulation flowed smoothly. She guided mass distribution along the system, feeling for the balance points. Patterns revealed themselves. Fractals rotating against fractals. The kind of math that felt more like music. She was about to finalize the stabilization when a sharp static distortion flashed across her display. A red warning icon flickered. Unauthorized. Input detected. Rae's jaw tightened. Someone was messing with her feed. She lifted her gaze just enough to spot Xeric standing beside a side console, casually tapping commands only an advanced student should have access to. He smiled slightly. He wasn't hiding it. He wanted her to notice. Rae turned back to her console. Zephyr, I'm receiving unauthorized data on my system. Zephyr didn't look away from the student she was instructing on the other side of the room. Unlikely. These consoles are isolated. Rae's display jittered again. Mass values doubling, she whispered under her breath. He's trying to overload the stabilizer. Sarah stepped closer, speaking quietly. Rae, back out. This is dangerous. No. Rae's voice stayed low and even. He wants me to fail. Not happening. Rae redirected her focus. She isolated the corrupted data stream and applied counterweights across the field. Her console hummed. The simulation sphere brightened. She regained control. Xeric's eyes narrowed. Rae let the stabilizer lock in place and pressed the final command. Simulation complete, she said. A chime confirmed her success. Zephyr approached. Her tendrils showed subtle approval. Excellent. Efficient response under pressure. Rae left the console, pulse steady. Xeric stepped toward her. Enjoy your victory. It won't last. Does talking like that ever make you feel tall? Rae asked. Or just loud? For a heartbeat, Xeric's expression cracked, annoyance twisting into something colder. He walked away, and Rae felt the tension in the room shift with him. Students rotated through their trials. Rae waited against the railing, reviewing her performance mentally. She replayed the moment the distortion hit, trying to figure out how Xeric accessed the system. Saris nudged her. You handled that flawlessly. I handled a glitch, Rae corrected. Not sabotage. Saris's antennae curled. You really think he would? Yes. Rae didn't hesitate. Xeric approached the simulation console for his trial. He seemed relaxed. Too relaxed. Professor Zephyr began the sequence. Before the system fully initialized, Xeric entered a private code into his station. Rae's eyes widened. He wasn't just sabotaging her, he was altering the entire chamber. The overhead lights flickered. The gravity beneath. Rae's boots hiccuped, just a small skip, but noticeable. Sarah stiffened, reaching for the railing. Professor Zephyr's tone sharpened. Xeric, what did you— The generator emitted a deep mechanical thrum that vibrated through the floor. Then everything went wrong. The gravity cut out. Students rose from the ground as if yanked upward by invisible strings. Desks, data pads, and loose equipment spun into the air. Someone screamed. Rae's stomach jolted, not from weightlessness, but from realization. Xeric's sabotage had overloaded the gravitic network. Professor Zephyr grabbed a wall handle, trying to regain control. Gravitational field collapse in progress. All students stay calm and hold on to anchored points. Rae didn't look for something to grab. She moved. Her body reacted before her mind assembled the full plan. Growing up on Earth meant adapting to unexpected danger, unstable footing, sudden impacts, the unpredictable. Chaos is a language. I speak it. She pushed off a railing and angled toward the main console, centrally anchored to the floor. In zero gravity, movement wasn't about force. It was about direction. She twisted her hips, adjusted her flight path, and caught the rail one-handed. Xyric drifted out of reach, spinning helplessly. He wasn't composed anymore. "Why isn't the backup engaging?" he shouted, voice cracking. Rae reached the central console. Warning messages raced across the screen. Gravitic core overrun. Field destabilizing. Orbital drift detected. Ceres's voice echoed above her. "Rae, the station's losing orbital control." Rae steadied her breathing. "Then we stabilize it." She accessed the manual override. The console resisted. Xyric's code embedded into the core systems. Her fingers flew faster. Professor Zephyra floated beside her, anchored only by one hand. "Rae, you don't have clearance. Then revoke my consequences later. You'll be expelled if you interfere. If I don't, we drop into a gas giant." Zephyra didn't argue again. Rae bypassed the primary authorization layer. She rerouted the power from the peripheral stabilizers into a single directional buffer. For a moment, the console responded. Then a violent shudder ran through the station, an indication that the entire orbital array was beginning to tilt. Outside the transparent walls, the gas giant's massive clouds seemed to swell closer. The station was falling. Xyric's voice trembled. "We have failsafes." "They're offline," Rae answered. "And you're the reason." He flinched, realizing she knew. The console alarms escalated in pitch. Signaling imminent orbital breach, Rae switched tactics. She stopped trying to fix the damage. Instead, she redirected gravity manually. No interface, no auto-calibration, just raw input. Her pulse drummed steady as she applied opposing force vectors. Overpowering the corrupted code through brute calculation, the console lights flickered. Vector alignment stabilizing. A tremor shot through the chamber. Students thudded back to the floor as gravity snapped back into place. Rae remained braced on the console, breathing hard. Professor Zephyra looked at her with something approaching astonishment. "How did you—" Rae swallowed, voice steady. "Earth teaches fast thinking. You improvise or you get hurt." Xyric stood in stunned silence, pale and shaken. Rae didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Professor Zephyra straightened. "Xyric Talvor, my office. Now." He didn't move at first. Rae met his gaze. "Next time you sabotage someone, make sure they don't know the system better than you do." His jaw clenched. But he said nothing. As students filed out, still shaken, Ceres approached Rae. "You saved everyone." Rae wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead. "I just did what needed to be done." Ceres touched her shoulder gently. "That's what makes it brave." Rae stood there, looking through the transparent wall. Below, the gas giant churned violently, beautiful and deadly, a reminder. Earth had shaped her. Gravity had challenged her every single day of her life. She didn't come here to fit in. She came here to rise. The alarms finally went silent, but the tension in the chamber hadn't dissolved. Students stood unsteady on their feet, still shaken by the sudden return of gravity. Some clutched railings. Others leaned against walls, staring at Rae as if seeing her for the first time. Only the hum of the stabilizing field remained. Professor Zephyra straightened, expression composed but sharp. "Rae Everhart." "Come with me." Rae expected reprimand, maybe confinement. Instead, Zephyra led her quickly to the elevated control room overlooking the chamber. Rae followed, legs steady despite the draining adrenaline. The door shut behind them with a soft seal. From above, she could see the entire class dispersing in a scattered, stressed shuffle. Xyric stood by the exit, eyes downcast. Zephyra turned to Rae. "What you did was outside protocol, unauthorized, dangerous." Rae nodded once. "I know." Zephyra's tendrils shifted slowly. "You should have waited for instructions." Rae kept her voice calm. "We were losing altitude. Waiting wasn't an option." For a long moment, Zephyra simply studied her. Rae refused to break eye contact. If she was going to be expelled, she wasn't doing it apologizing for saving lives. The professor exhaled. "Most students can't keep their thoughts straight when the gravity shifts. Yet you maintained precision while under threat." Her gaze sharpened. "How?" Rae hesitated. She didn't know how to explain something that wasn't trained, it was lived. On Earth, she said softly. Stability isn't guaranteed. Sometimes the ground moves, earthquakes, storms. You don't wait for instruction. You act. Zephyr blinked, processing. You acted because hesitation is dangerous, Rae nodded. Hesitation gets you hurt, or gets someone else hurt. Zephyr placed a hand on the railing. You adapted faster than our auto-stabilizers. I didn't think, Rae admitted. I just handled it. Zephyr's tendrils dimmed, reflective. Instinct built by hardship becomes intuition. Rae wasn't sure if Zephyr meant it as praise or diagnosis. The door slid open suddenly. Headmaster Solivar entered, robes sweeping the floor. His expression was unreadable. Zephyr addressed him immediately. Headmaster. Rae stabilized the chamber. Solivar nodded once. I saw. Then to Rae, walk with me. They crossed a long hall of glass windows overlooking the nebula. Rae kept her pace even, focusing on breathing. If they were about to remove her, she would accept it with dignity. You saved this station from entering a terminal descent, Solivar said, voice low. And you did it while under automated sabotage. Rae glanced at him. I acted. That's all. Solivar stopped walking and faced her. The nebula's violet light reflected in his 4 eyes. Do you know why other species fear humans? Rae didn't answer. She'd heard the whispers. Barely civilized. Instinct-driven. Dangerous. Solivar continued. Your species evolved where the environment tried to kill you. You learned cooperation through struggle. You created ingenuity through necessity. And most of all, his gaze sharpened. You adapted, Rae swallowed. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It is an observation. Then softer, and perhaps a warning. A silence stretched between them. Finally, Solivar spoke with authority. Xeric will be disciplined. The council will review his conduct. You, Rae Everhart, will not be expelled. Relief slid into her chest, quiet and warm. But, Solivar added, you cannot continue ignoring protocol. You must learn to work within systems, not override them. Rae nodded once. Understood. He gestured to the door. Return to the others. Back in the main hall, students clustered in uneasy groups. When Rae entered, conversation stopped. It wasn't fear in their eyes this time. It was unease mixed with recognition. Ceres broke from the crowd and rushed toward her. Are you all right? Yeah, Rae said. Headmaster didn't throw me out, Ceres exhaled in relief. Good, you saved everyone, Rae shrugged lightly. I did what I could. At the far wall, Xeric stood with his back straight, hands clasped tightly behind him. His posture was perfect, but his face betrayed conflict. He was waiting. He approached slowly. Rae braced herself. I miscalculated, he said stiffly. Not quite an apology, but not avoidance either. I thought you'd panic. You wanted me to fail, Rae replied. Xeric didn't deny it. Your species is unpredictable. I feared what would happen if you feared we might be better than you. Rae didn't say it as accusation, just fact. His eyes flickered. Hurt, anger, realization. She saw all of it. Rae lowered her voice. Xeric, superiority isn't strength. Pressure reveals the truth. When things fell apart, you froze. I didn't. He inhaled sharply, and for the first time, Rae saw not arrogance, but confusion. How? He asked quietly. How are you so calm? Rae leaned closer. On Earth, chaos is familiar. I don't break when things go wrong. I adapt. That's the difference. He turned away, unable to respond. Zephyr entered the hall then, ready to dismiss class. Today's exam is postponed. Take the remainder of the cycle to recover. Students began to file out. Rae expected the room to empty quickly, but instead, several lingered. A scaled student approached her cautiously. If you hadn't acted, what would have happened? We'd be falling through that gas giant, Rae answered honestly. Crushed by pressure before we ever hit the core. The student stared at her as if seeing something monumental. Thank you. Others echoed similar sentiments, not in chorus, not loudly, just sincere acknowledgments as they passed. Rae stood still, absorbing it. For the first time since arriving, she didn't feel like a specimen. She felt like a peer. Hours later, The Academy observation deck was almost empty. Rae sat cross-legged near the glass, watching the gas giant rotate. Its storms spiraled endlessly, violent and beautiful. Saris joined her quietly, sitting beside her. "You changed something today," Saris whispered. Rae kept her gaze on the storm. "I just reacted." "No," Saris said firmly. "You showed them what strength looks like when it's earned." Rae smiled faintly. "Humans don't break easily." "Humans adapt," Saris corrected. Rae's reflection stared back at her in the glass. Tired, determined, steady. She remembered the moment in the chamber when everything was weightless, when panic could have swallowed her, but something inside her stayed anchored. A quiet certainty. "I've lived through worse." Saris nudged her shoulder lightly. "Will you stay for the full program?" Rae nodded. "I didn't cross light years to quit on day 2. They sat in silence, watching the storms twist in impossible colors. Rae finally understood something that hadn't fully formed until now. She didn't need to earn permission to exist here. She just needed to show what humanity was capable of. Footsteps approached behind her. Zephra's reflection appeared in the glass. "Rae," she said gently, "there is a proverb among my people. Stars are brightest on the darkest horizon." "Remember that." Rae stood. "I will." As she walked out of the observation deck, she didn't feel like the outsider anymore. She felt like someone who had left a mark, someone impossible to ignore. Rae woke before her alarm, not because she needed to. Her body simply refused to stay still. She sat up in the Academy dorm's small sleeping alcove. Soft artificial morning light filtered through the glass wall, painting her room in diluted gold. One blurry moment later, the memory of the previous day hit her fully. Zero-G collapse. System override. Zyrex sabotage. Students floating in terror. She had stopped it. Rae rubbed her eyes and swung her legs over the side of the bed. Artificial gravity was stable. Good. Her limbs felt light, but her thoughts were heavy. Saving a station was one thing. Surviving afterward, navigating politics, whispers, expectations, was another. A notification blinked on her wall terminal. Mandatory Summit. Gravitic Lab 03, 0800 hours. Attendance. Rae Everhart, Zurich Talvor, Council Representatives. Rae exhaled through her nose. Formal summons. No avoiding it. She grabbed her uniform, matte black with a narrow silver stripe, first-year engineering designation. She brushed her hair back, tied it into a tight knot, and headed out. The walk of scrutiny, the corridor outside her dorm was unusually quiet. Students tracked her movement without pretending otherwise. Conversations paused as she passed. Some looked curious, others uneasy. A small, amphibious student whispered to their friend. She redirected the gravity array manually, without neural assistance. "Deathworlders are terrifying." Rae pretended not to hear. She kept walking. At the last turn before the lab, someone fell into step beside her, quick-footed, light on their feet. Saris. Their antennae were angled upward. Concern, not fear. "They called you to the summit?" "Seems like it," Saris chewed their lip. "Do not let them twist the narrative." "You saved everyone." Rae gave a tired half-smile. "That's not always enough." Saris hesitated before asking, "Are you afraid?" Rae considered it honestly. "No, I'm tired. Tired of defending her right to breathe." The Summit Lab 03 had been rearranged into an impromptu tribunal. A long, transparent table divided the room. 3 council reps sat behind it, each from a different species. Headmaster Solivar stood off to the side, observing, and Zurich, already in the room, kept his gaze fixed on the floor. His uniform was immaculate, posture rigid, yet something about him seemed diminished. A councilwoman with shimmering violet skin leaned forward. "Rae Everhart, student of Earth. Step forward." Rae stepped into the center of the room, chin high. "Review our conclusion," she said without waiting. "Zyrex sabotaged the gravity systems." Gasps. One council member straightened, offended. They had expected her to show deference, not lead. The violet-skinned councilwoman adjusted her posture. You speak before permission is granted. I speak because truth doesn't need permission, Rae replied evenly. Xeric introduced unauthorized code. That's fact. Xeric flinched as though struck. One representative, a tall, insectoid figure, tapped their mandibles thoughtfully. Xeric Talvor, do you contest this? Xeric finally raised his head. His voice was thin but steady. I confirmed the interference. I believed the human would panic and reveal her species' instability. Rae waited for anger to hit her. Instead, she felt sadness. So you risked lives to prove a point. Xeric's throat bobbed with a swallow. I misjudged. The Violet Councilwoman interjected. That misjudgment nearly destroyed the Academy. Rae held her gaze. And I prevented it. There was silence. The insectoid council member faced Rae. We acknowledge your role in preventing loss of life. But you accessed restricted systems without authorization. This breach requires disciplinary action. Rae felt her stomach drop. She had expected this possibility, yet hearing it aloud still hit harder than she thought it would. Solivar finally spoke. Rae did what trained tech officers could not. She maintained clarity under emergency conditions. That does not excuse her disobedience, the councilwoman countered. Rae's voice stayed calm. If you want to punish me, fine. But do not pretend protocol matters more than people. The insectoid council member paused, mid-mandible tap. Rae pressed on. Systems can fail. Lives shouldn't. Solivar watched her with something close to approval. Xeric took a step forward. Punish me! I caused the crisis, Rae blinked. She hadn't expected him to take responsibility, not like that. The councilwoman assessed both of them. Very well. Decision pending. She tapped a command, ending the summit. Rae Everhart, return to class until a verdict is delivered. Xeric stood in place, shoulders tight. Rae hesitated, then walked out. The weight of waiting. The rest of the day unraveled slowly. Every classroom she entered felt heavier. Every instructor hesitated before speaking to her, as if she'd become a volatile component. During hydroponics biology, Sarah slid a nutrient vial toward Rae. Drink. You're pale. Rae took it gratefully. I'm processing. Saris's antennae lowered sympathetically. Processing is good. Isolation isn't. Rae stared at the greenery. Rows of oxygen-producing vines and luminescent spores. On Earth, nothing had ever been so quiet. The silence made her chest ache. I didn't come here to be a problem, Rae whispered. You're not a problem, Saris said gently. You are change. Xeric approaches. Later, returning to her dorm. Rae found Xeric waiting. He stood awkwardly, hands clasped behind his back, a formal stance. But tremor visible in his fingers, Rae slowed. You need something? He swallowed hard. To apologize, Rae crossed her arms. Go on, Xeric exhaled, words spilling out too quickly. I thought humans were volatile, dangerous. I wanted to expose that. And instead, Rae said, you exposed yourself. He winced. Yes, Rae studied him. The arrogance was stripped away. This wasn't a power play. It was remorse. I didn't want you to die, he added. Just lose. That's the problem, Rae replied quietly. You think losing proves weakness? Xeric held her gaze. Then teach me, Rae blinked. Teach you? To adapt, he clarified. The way you do. There was sincerity. Not flattery, humility. Rae stepped past him toward her door. Meet me at Training Bay K tomorrow at 0600. Xeric nodded. Stunned, she agreed. Oh, Rae added, don't be late. Humans don't walk slowly. Night on the observation deck. Rae returned to the observation deck that night, alone. She stood before the tempered glass, looking at the storm bands below. Earth's storms had taught her fear. This world's storms had taught her perspective. A faint reflection appeared beside her. Solivar. You challenged the council, he said. Few would dare. Rae didn't look away from the swirling gas giant. Fear doesn't solve anything. Solivar folded his hands behind his back. Humanity has a reputation, I know, Rae said. Unpredictable, reckless, Capable, Solivar corrected. Because you refuse to be powerless. Rae turned toward him, surprised. You have the trait many species lack, he continued. When confronted with the unknown, you move toward it, not away. Stars reflected across the glass, scattering in Rae's pupils like constellations. Solivar's voice softened. You will face resistance here. Change always draws friction. But the Academy needs students who challenge limits, not obey them blindly. Rae swallowed the sudden swell of emotion. So, what now? Now, Solivar said. You wait. The council will issue a verdict in the morning. He started to leave, then paused. Rae Everhart, for what it's worth, humans don't merely survive adversity. They evolve because of it. She watched him leave. Rae rested her palm against the cool glass. I won't break, she whispered to no one. The gas giant below churned endlessly. She stood steady,